Welcome, everybody. So the Coach Clinic, we've had tons and tons of questions come again in through the form. So thank you for submitting your questions ahead of the event. And so we're looking forward to getting into those shortly. Before we begin, I'd like to actually just do by a quick show of hands. Who here is for whom is this your very first event with the Somatic School? Just by a show of hands. Never done anything with the Somatic School before, never attended any events with us. Okay. So no, everyone's been to to events with the Somatic School before. Fantastic. By show of hands, who here is already a Somanaut at the Somatic School? Great. Okay, cool. So about, I think that's half of you or just over half. Cool. Lovely. Great. Susie, wonderful. Well, welcome. It's good to have you here with us. So this is the Coach Clinic, and this is really an open space in which we'll be exploring your questions as they relate to coaching, with specifically through the lens of a body-oriented coaching approach. So you submit your questions or ask them here in the space. Of course, I imagine questions will come up for you, and so I encourage you to ask your questions today. That's the whole point of this event. And we'll be exploring those. And my role here today is to kind of pass those questions through the lens of body-oriented coaching and somatic approaches more generally. So how might we kind of take on these various coaching challenges or experiences you're having with clients and look at that through that lens and what becomes available to you when you do. That's the sort of thing. So before we get started, I want to just invite you, and it is merely an invitation. If you can do whatever you like here, but invite you into a very short, simple, embodied experience that almost anyone can do from right where you are right now. And if and when you might be catching this on the recording, you can skip past this. Otherwise, feel free to follow along at home. And for wherever you are right now, whatever you've been doing, this is an opportunity to connect with yourself and importantly with the world around you. So it's a little practice called an orientation. We tend to begin the vast majority of our events and trainings with a little orientation to connect with the here and now. So if you'd like to follow along, I'll guide you through just a couple of minutes. And again, feel free to stop at any time. You can choose to do whatever you like, whatever feels right for you right now. At the Somatic School, we have a principle. We say the authority of the body. So checking in, seeing what feels right for you in this moment. And if it isn't resonant, it isn't right. So you can switch it up. So perhaps just to start with a little gentle invitation to see what it's like to do less in this moment. Offering those words to your own body mind. How might it be just to do less right now? And just noticing what happens with those words. Whatever comes for you is, you can just simply welcome whatever comes, whatever may come. How might it be to do less in this moment? There's nothing you have to do right now, at least for this few minutes. So what happens if you give yourself that gentle invitation to do less? And with orientation, the idea is we're just connecting to the environment through our senses. So we'll start with the visual sense. So the invitation here is if you were to do one thing right now, it would simply be to see what you see in the moment that you see it. So how might it be to let the eyes go wherever they want to go, just for a couple of minutes here? You can see how it is to let the eyes just roam freely through the space that you're in. What do you see that lets you know you're here, in this time, in this place? What's reaching you from the world around you right now, contacting you through your visual sense? And if the visual sense isn't available for you right now, then you can also do this with your auditory sense, noticing what sounds come to you that let you know that you're here. And some of you might like to play dancing between those two senses, the visual, the auditory, your sense of sight, your hearing. What's reaching you? What's contacting you right now? And maybe as you're doing that, something catches your eye that's just a little bit lovely, pleasant, nice, enjoyable in some way. And for this, the invitation is just to let the eyes rest there for a moment, to really enjoy whatever that might be. Allowing yourself just to register the enjoyment of whatever it is that you might be seeing there. And the moment something shifts, and the moment that is no longer enjoyable, just letting the eyes once again roam freely through the space. And maybe your eyes land on something else now that catches your eye quite naturally. That again is in some way pleasant or nice. How is it to let the eyes just rest there for a moment? And once again, as soon as something shifts, just going back to orientation. Memories, associations might come as we catch, as something catches our gaze in the space. How is it just to simply see what you're seeing? Textures, colors, shapes, as if maybe even for the first time, like a baby looking around the room. And by all means, if you're enjoying the orientation, feel free to continue for as long as you like. I'd love to offer the rest of anyone who's ready to do so to just do some check-ins. Maybe we just drop these into the chat here. Yeah, sharing a little check-in. Right now I'm feeling, and something in your environment, maybe naming or sharing with us something in you that you notice that's in your environment right now that feels like a support to you in some way, that either you enjoy or that feels like a support to you in some way right now. Yeah. And maybe dropping some of those into the chat. For some of you, is there anyone here who'd like to unmute and share into the space just to hear you checking in before we get into our questions for today? Barbara says she's enjoying the ocean there, making her feel calm. Lovely, Barbara. Ildiko, my shoulders immediately dropped. My eyes landed on a photo of my daughter. Now I feel relaxed and warm. Lovely. Oh, I might have seen you unmute there, Galina. If you want to jump in, you're very welcome to. Or Susie, also unmuted. Or there'll be plenty of time as well. We'll be inviting lots of interaction here throughout. So Elena feeling calm, getting support from the leaves of the ginkgo biloba. I forget how to say that. Outside my window, dancing with the wind. Beautiful. Amazing. And Jamie, the coffee. Fantastic. Good stuff. Lovely. Well, welcome everyone. Great to have you with us. So a few more, and yeah, feel free to keep sharing in the chat. Lovely to hear you checking in there. So we'll begin here, and I just want to do a little bit more framing of the coach clinic. So, like I said, it's an opportunity to kind of pass your questions of challenges and little things that might be coming up in your coaching sessions through the lens of body oriented coaching. This is not a supervisory space, and so it's not a substitute for coach supervision. You could think of this more as a kind of getting a body oriented coaching kind of 2 cents on what's coming up for you. But it's non-advisory. We're also, you taking responsibility for what you do with your clients, but we'll have some rich conversations about what might be coming up. Client confidentiality is obviously important here. So if you are sharing challenges or things that are coming up with your clients as it relates to getting kind of this body oriented coaching lens on it, remember not to use their names, and please try to kind of leave out the specifics of their life as well that they may be identifiable by. And really, if you can, maybe focusing on your challenges as a coach rather than the client's content, as in like maybe perhaps the details or the content of what's been shared. That will help us maintain confidentiality for your clients, which is just a core principle, ethical guidelines that we try to upkeep here at the Somatic School and elsewhere. So yeah, great. There's a number of questions come in. I want to just check and see. I'm gonna just show fans, anyone kind of bringing questions today with you, like that you have freshly that yeah, okay, Aladith and potentially Susie there. Okay, if the things that are coming up, then we'll come back to you. I'll just start with the people that have kind of submitted questions in the form beforehand, and first of all, I just need to see who is present, because we'll kind of discuss and explore and respond to the questions for those who are actually present here today. So, Libby, are you here with us? Okay, I'm just going to go for a few of these because we'll get started on one of them soon. Marjorie, any Marjorie here today? No, okay. Okay, Jamie, Eloise, I see you both here. Sylvia here, and Elidith, I see you there as well. Okay, great. So we'll start. Yes, I heard Sylvia here. No, okay, cool. And Harriet, we said we'd start with your question first. In fact, actually, the last time. Do those questions still feel live for you now? Are you keen to
Yeah,
jump in?
I did a bit of work on them, and my perspective on them's changed a bit. Um
Hmm. Yeah, great. Please share. Yeah, and yeah, maybe there's like an updated version, or feel free to share if you want to just share your like
um
what's come up for you. Yeah.
well, I guess I'm still quite early in the journey, so I'm still kind of like workshopping it, but I think which was the question that we left on, because there was three questions that I've been like brainstorming about.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
which one we left on.
Would it be okay if I drop them in the chat, Harriet?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah, good. And then I can and then everyone can see the questions, and then you can decide where you want to begin. So those
Um
three questions you had. And I think we touched on the last one, I think.
was it how yeah, so with that um the block one, I was thinking I'd actually take a step back. So instead of trying to um like go towards the change, or I would step back and see, like, try and get connection with their body, and maybe explore like safety or something like that. Um I don't know where, but I would go back a bit, I think, with it.
Right.
And also allow them to feel that. So maybe give them time to say, like, yeah, can we just stay with this feeling for a bit? And rather than trying to resolve it and keep on running into running into dead ends. And then another thing I thought was, if they were to go in one direction, even if it's a small step, what would that be? Like a 1% change or a 1% thing. Um,
Lovely developments on the question there. So Harriet, the one you were referring to there is that how can I work somatically with clients who generate many potential solutions, but experience physical or situational blocks for each one so that no option feels doable? Is that the one you're referring to there?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, great. Um, uh, let's see here. Maybe we just open this up briefly. Is there anyone else who's got any thoughts on this one here? And then I can share some ideas off the back of what you kind of build on where you've already progressed in your thinking around that, Harriet. So yeah, anyone want to jump in with any thoughts on Harriet's second question there? And by physical or situational blocks, do you mean external? Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so at that question at the time when I wrote it, it was with a client, he had a lot going on externally, and she um she just got a new job, um and she changed her job into a sector so that she was making more of a difference. It was into safeguarding, legislation in safeguarding. Um, but there was her boss wasn't very supportive, and everything she wanted to do was kind of blocked. So she was feeling really overwhelmed. And then in her personal life, there was a big situation that she again couldn't control, um, and was waiting for like a meeting out, well, a court hearing outside. Um,
Right.
and it just, yeah, at the time when I had that session with her, I felt like there isn't anything like, how can you move forward? Like everything's external. Like she's trying to be positive and trying to move forward, but it's just too much. Yeah, I did actually ask her, what do you have control over now? And she was like, nothing. Everything felt too overwhelming. And we kind of discussed this in my group a bit as well. And um something that came up was I was that like I was allowing her to be a victim and kind of trying to fix her, if that makes sense, or trying to find solutions. Um,
Mm.
and maybe that was part of the problem as well, that like my mindset of going into it and trying to help, um, when actually I should, she's perfect as she is, and then um I'm not very
Yeah.
good at it.
Yeah. So this reminds me of something. So Simon Caviezel is a Gestalt. I think he's a Gestalt therapist and a coach. He brings Gestalt practice into his coaching work. He's on one of the core texts in the courses, relational coaching, and I think he co-authored that one. So Simon Caviezel once said on a podcast, I heard him saying something I really liked, and he said that we have to we even our well-intentioned desire to help can sometimes interfere with the coaching process. But first of all, I want to mention, just to kind of underline, Harriet, that well-intentioned, the words well-intentioned there. So hearing that you wanted to help your client is a beautiful thing. that's a yeah. Uh, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say she's a friend, and I think that was the massive problem as
Uh,
well, that it was, so I'm really early in the start and I was just practicing with friends, and I think it's learning the different roles. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, this is I have to say, amongst coaches in training, this is a big one, and I will hold my hand up to having done exactly. I used to do something when I first learned to coach. I used to call it coaching without consent. I mean, I didn't call it that at the time, but looking back on it now, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the time, I thought I was just practicing my coaching skills. I'm not suggesting you were doing this, Harriet, but anyone I encountered would be victim to my coaching. Would be a coaching. You're like, I was like hammer and everyone was nail. I was a coach and everyone was a client. The thing is, if people haven't opted into that a coaching contract with us and they have understood exactly what that means, and we've co kind of
Oh, she did consent to it. Like we
yeah, yeah.
sat down for a coaching session. It wasn't without consent.
Totally, Harry. What I'm saying right now is something
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I did
Okay.
back in the
Yeah,
past.
yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
not, not, not.
Okay.
I completely know that sounds like a different situation, but it does point to the fact that we can end up coaching more at the beginning of our coaching journey. We can be more. We're more likely to coach friends and family at that early stage. It's also a nice low bar to entry. It can be a nice way for us to kind of feel comfortable practicing with people. So in your situation, Harriet, you have a friend who agreed to do some coaching with you. The one thing I will say, and this has nothing to do with somatics or body-oriented coaching approaches, is that I do, this is an opinion, so take what you like and leave with the rest, but I do think it becomes harder for many of us to separate our own
Mm.
kind of vested, how do I put this? We're invested in that person's outcomes because we care about them beyond the nature of the care we have for a typical coaching client, because they're a friend or they're a family member. We also have history with them. we also might be attached to them in healthy ways and sometimes unhealthy ways perhaps, but the point is that all of those things factor in then, and they become they kind of bleed into the coaching work that you might be doing. So it's something just to be mindful of. It doesn't mean you can't
Yeah.
coach family and friends. It's just something to be mindful of. And actually, sometimes you can be quite open about it. There's nothing wrong with, as a coach, even if you're coaching somebody who's not a family or friend, but especially in this situation, is to say something like, I'm noticing I'm finding it a little hard to separate my own desire to see you happy, for example, with helping you in this session right now, as you need, serving you in the way that you need to be in this session here. And again, that's a positive thing. The fact that you want your friend to be happy is a positive thing, but it's the fact you can name it in the space. Sometimes even that naming and acknowledgement sometimes is enough to help the coaching actually progress, where otherwise it might cause kind of an interference. So back to your original. Well, first of all, how's that landing so far, Harriet, on this point? And then let's
Yeah.
return to your
Yeah, I agree with all of that. That was it was actually Jamie said that she has a similar situation with her friend, and she will say like, okay, so this part's the coaching role, and then does like the feedback as a friend, like a debrief with the fr as a friend as well,
Right.
which I thought was quite a nice way to handle it.
That's nice. Passing that out a bit and kind of, yeah, it creates a cleaner container then, because you're
Yeah.
making a delineation between what is friends and a chat and what is coaching work. Lovely. To come back to your question around blocks and to kind of tie this into the body oriented coaching work and somatic skill set within coaching. The thing that struck me on reading your question, Harriet, before, first of all, I just will mention that Ildiko shared here, what does your client have control over? For example, you mentioned you'd explored that, and
Yeah.
yeah, and there is another angle on this, which is that you mentioned, so just to build on your own intuition here, which was to kind of take a step back from the place you found yourself with that client there. The So this is again a perspective, my perspective on this. So, and perhaps we can open up and see what other perspectives are in the space here. But this physical or situational block. Okay, so the external circumstances that are in the way, perhaps, of this client being able to kind of move forward in the way that they want to. The, a perspective on this is that those things in and of themselves aren't blocks. They just are. They just
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
circumstances. Yeah. So the question then becomes, what has this become a block for the client? Like, what is it that's blocking about that?
Yeah.
And that has everything, I think, to do with not the thing itself, for want of a better word, but the client's relationship to that thing. And when we get into the space where we're now talking about how they relate to it or what meaning they make around it or those sorts of things, then it's a really lovely doorway into, exactly as you said, well, how are they holding all of that in their body mind right now? Like, how is that relationship with that circumstance or that situational thing? How is that? What are the um, what are the details of that, let's say, in a sense, that they could start to become intimate with, start to come into relationship with, and then importantly for body oriented workers, start to kind of dialogue with that. Because so much of this work is about how is the experience of that being held in them, and then if the client can come into dialogue with that, then insights begin to emerge. And coming into dialogue with that looks like the client themselves tending to that and getting curious about that. Just like in, say, for example, a very pure example of this would be in the focusing skill set, where a client in self and presence is able to tend to the felt sense of the whole of this situational block. The thing that feels like a block, where's that blocked feeling or that stuckness,
Mm.
and then can we come into relationship with that? And what story does that want to tell, basically? Was that Does that chime with where you were kind of heading yourself, Harriet, or what comes up for you hearing that?
Yeah. I I I feel like there's still more that I need to explore in it. Um, but that's kind of like given the start part of it. Like I feel like I had the kind of middle part, and then now I just need to work it through a bit.
And the middle part in this case is what, Harriet?
Like the an idea of what to do with it, rather than before I was just like, well, yeah, you're right. Everything's blocked. I get it. But now I see actually that's fine. And it was I like the reframe of it. They're not necessarily blocks, they are just that is what it is here. Um
But it feels like a block. They
yeah,
perceive it as a block, and
yeah,
that's the bit that you're coaching around, really.
yeah,
It's interesting, Harriet. I think your intuition to take a step back from that moment that from where they find themselves is such a strong intuition because um really that is the coaching. I think what I heard you say before, Harriet, was that you might if I'm going to use different words, the words you use, but correct me if I'm wrong here. It sounded like what you were talking was that you may have jumped into like what I might call like problem solving. So like,
yeah.
okay,
That's what I was doing before. Yeah.
yeah, solution seeking and problem solving, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. That's exactly the mindset I had, which I realized isn't what you need in coaching.
Right. Well, there can be a time and a place for it sometimes. There might
Yeah,
be a moment where that's exactly what's being asked for. A lot of the time, that's right towards like more kind of closer towards the end of a session, ironically. You might
yeah,
think that it's the kind of bulk of the session, but sometimes that's kind of where we're just brainstorming ways forward, maybe right at the
yeah.
end. But it sounds like, as you say, taking a step, if you go upstream from like, okay,
Mm,
let's find, then really it's like the block itself or the sense of being blocked, that's the middle part. That's the meat of the coaching, really, right there.
yeah,
Yeah. So there's so much to explore there. I mean, and funnily enough, if you go from, okay, how do we get you unblocked? We're actually, in a way, I rarely use this language because we're not really working with parts work explicitly at the Somatic School. But in a sense, it's almost as if you're then coaching the part rather than the person. Because
okay.
this is a bit abstract, but it's almost like it's the part that feels blocked. So then if you say, okay, well, like, how do we get you unblocked? In a sense, you're coaching that. But if you're coaching that part that feels blocked, but if you coach the person, and we say, oh, let's get curious about that felt sense of blocked you have right now, which is kind of akin to a part that feels blocked in a sense, right? Let's see what it has to say. Whatever aspects of our experience become alive in that moment in relation to that, and then those are, you could argue that those are the other parts, maybe, or the other felt senses in relation to that. And from there, actually, you might find that a perspective comes or an insight or some clarity that actually loosens that sense of feeling blocked. And actually now they orient to that experience in a different way and they perceive that experience in a different way. And so therefore, like what needs to happen from that place changes.
Yeah,
So I got something new.
thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Eric. There's a lot in there. Yeah. Good stuff. All right. I see loads of things have come into the chat here. So, yep. Okay. Just glancing through. Yeah. Some lovely, that's an interesting, some beautiful inquiries, like questions from Ildiko here. Um, not having control. It's a big one we're always working on as body into coaches. It's kind of letting go of control. And actually, what's our role as coaches? Are we a question to you as a group? Maybe are we as body into coaches or as coaches in general? Are we there to? Are we? Is it our role to find solutions? These are leading questions I'm asking right now. I have an idea about this myself, but yeah, I guess I'll put these to you, and maybe these are questions to mull over in between, as you go out after this event. It's like, what is our role as coaches? Are we there to find solutions? Are we even there to help our clients find solutions? Interesting question. Is problem solving a part of the coaching in the first place? It might be asked of us. Is it our duty as a coach? Is that what we are there to do? All of these things. And then I guess the question is, just like you said with the client, control, what do we have control over? Maybe our question as coaches, what do we have, sort of what's within our remit in a way? Like, what are we facilitating as coaches? What's the process there? So lots of questions. I'm not giving any answers there, but there are things to ponder on, because I think these are interesting questions. Sometimes we can take some of these as like we have an idea about what it is, but if we question it, then we might find we end up somewhere else. Lottie, how is it notice? Yeah, lack of control. There's lots of questions about being out of, like, not being in control, not being maybe in control, directing where the session is going, and not knowing where the session is going maybe as well. Okay, cool. And lovely, Eloise, that's nice. So I'll just read what Eloise has shared, and then Eloise, maybe we come to your question, because you submitted one. Where are you, Eloise? There you are. Okay, cool. So you just said here, my perspective is that creating the conditions for the client to be witnessed in their current moment, to be with what comes up, can offer a sense of safety and a sense of perspective at times when the people feel overwhelmed, out of control. To not have to seek for a solution, but to be with what arises often empowers people. Nice, Eloise. Is there anything else you want to add to that before we come to your question?
No, I don't think so.
All right, rock and roll. So Eloise, let's have a look at the question that you had here. It was, some clients don't want to identify a North Star and want to I'll put it in the chat as well. Bear with me 1 second. Sorry. There you go. Some clients don't want to identify a North Star and want to meander and feel into the space. I notice a tension in me between being deeply present to the client's process and creating the container. So the tension between being present to the process and then creating the container, which includes the North Star or the desired outcome for the session. Not searching for a specific answer necessarily, up for discussing it and hear how others approach this. Eloise, is there anything you want to add to your question? Maybe we'll open this one up to the group for a bit and then see, anything you want to add to this question here?
No, I think just to reiterate, like the tension that I notice in me between presence and then procedure. Of like, but the procedure is to, identify what the client wants out of the session, which was, a large part of our teaching, well, certainly the initial part of our teaching, so that we've got something to work towards and so that we can, circle back to it at the end. Not all clients want to do that. And as I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about the ones I've been working with. Yeah, there's a mixture. Sometimes they're the clients who are very somatically aware anyway, and they're very comfortable being in their body. So they almost start the process anyway, and I'm just holding the container. But then there are other clients who are very heady and sort of talk around and around and around things rather than get to the point.
Yeah, and then there's this dynamic tension between, as you say, process and procedure. That's a nice way of putting it.
Presence, procedure.
Presence. Presence. Yeah. Okay, even better. Great, lovely.
Presence and process, procedure, process of.
Okay, the process
of the procedure. Yeah, so the structural versus the human warmth. Yeah.
Great, brilliant. Yep. So, and this is classic, I think, especially when we start to adopt a slightly more emergent approach within our coaching work. And it's actually something I've been pondering on a lot recently as to whether there's a linear theory of change and there's emergent theories of change. And I've been wondering, I've been asking myself the question, is all change emergent, even when it looks linear? I'll open that, I'll leave that again. I'm posing philosophical questions today. I'm not coming with any answers to these, but I have been wondering about that. So with that, when we are approaching things with a more emergent style, let's sort of see what emerges, a bit like we were just talking about with Harriet. Like, rather than searching for solutions or looking to solve the problem, it's almost like we get into relationship with the experience itself, with whatever they're in, with what this moment is kind of what's wanting our attention right now. And then we allow solutions to kind of emerge. They do, and they invariably often do. Like, that's the remarkable thing. They come. So, and a lot of the time when we adopt an approach like this, clients will start to come and say, let's just jump in. Let's just be in the soup. Let's be in that emergent space. I don't have anything in particular that I'm wanting to explore today. Let's just see how it unfolds. Is that the kind of situation you're talking about, Eloise, where that sometimes happens?
Yes, definitely. And I noticed that there's often, so, sometimes, not with all people, but sometimes I'm thinking, I'm noticing my head thinking, am I doing enough here? Am I, holding this container enough? Am I coaching? And then suddenly something will, not in my process, but in the client's process, will just go, and then I'll feel it and I'll be like, oh, yeah, I am. I'm trying to get myself out of the way, actually. That's what I'm trying to do. And
Yeah.
let them be in the container.
Yeah,
So
beautiful, Eloise. Great.
talking
Well,
about
that feels like we've tilled some really rich, like fertile soil there for this conversation. Let's open it up then. Anyone got any thoughts on this dynamic tension and how to navigate this as a coach or somatic coach?
I just wanted to say, Eloise, I feel like that is the whole practice, is realizing that it's enough. We are enough just to bring our loving presence and, a few well-chosen questions that are completely attuned to where they're at. And yeah, trust, so much more trust. That's certainly my journey, is how can I trust myself even more and trust that the person in front of me in this trusting, loving space, something will happen. Or just things will, I don't know, just trusting that things will shift. It's so hard not to even have an agenda of something happening. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you, Lottie.
Okay.
Anyone else? What else is in the space and thoughts kind of percolating coming out? I see a few bits in the chat, but anyone else want to share around this one?
Yes, I'm sorry, my camera's off. I'm driving.
Okay.
Before I was a coach, I was a painter, and I have drawn on that experience to help me get over that tension. I'm obviously still working on it, but I always felt so dirty trying to insist on this procedure when, like you said, Eloise, I just want the client to be able to be free in this process. And so what I think of is how when I paint on a canvas, it is the boundaries that help me be free. When I know where I'm going, what the limits are of where this conversation might go or how far out I can paint, then I find that I can be even more creative and free.
Lovely. Brilliant. Yeah, that's really speaking to the finding harmony in the dynamic tension, like the yin and the yang there. I kind of want to build on a point there from you, Bethany, in a moment. Let's just see if there's anything else in the space before we get to that. Anyone else wanted to jump in with this one? Elizabeth, yeah.
For me, I find very helpful. Like I am a mom and I teach also. So I found it very helpful to recall, like go to the basics of like when you accompany a kid, like try to go with your agenda to a kid. Like it will go bad because they will not, they will not take it, right? So sometimes it's really sometimes when we are related to adults, like we just think there's expectations and there's all these things that we think like, oh, am I doing enough? Or like all these other conversations that come up when we're adults. But I try to picture myself always in this relationship in which I come with this, but it can always change. It can always be like, so then when you stay in the present moment, I will say 100% is best to be in presence than semantics or procedures or whatever, because everything unfolds really from that, like real presence of like, okay, I'm here for you. Like, let's see where this take us, right? Like, so for me, I found it really helpful just to jump into the role of accompanying a kid, and like how funny, because it's really funny when you, like, as a teacher, I had this plan for the day and like all the things, and it was fun, it was nice, but then when you bring it to the classroom, it's not what the class needs that day, and then you just need to shift, and then you just need to be creative and explore. And so that gives me the flexibility to really just go in depth and see what you find in the way kind of mode. So I just wanted to share that in case it serves anybody.
Lovely. Thank you, Elizabeth. So that's fantastic. I feel like from Lottie, we've heard something around really being bringing that quality of presence that recognizes that where the question of am I doing a good job can sort of relax around, well, what is my job to do, and really holding that, creating that space in which a particular quality of presence that brings the conditions within which this emergent process can unfold, that the kind of intelligence, the wisdom within emerges within the client, and that actually that we're doing a good job if that's happening, and that moment, like you said, Eloise, can come any moment that the shift happens in the client, or the awareness or the insight comes, sometimes when we least expect it, sometimes right at the end of the session, even though the rest of the time it felt like we were kind of swimming in this kind of pool. And Aleda, I hear you speak, it's correct me, how do I pronounce your name again?
Aleda, yes.
I've been getting it right. Okay, great. Yes. So Aleda, you were speaking to also the idea that like letting go of any kind of fixed ideas. It's good to like have some idea of what, procedure, etc., but we can hold them lightly. So we come in and we might have ideas about how we're holding the space or what we're doing there, but we're being present to each moment as it unfolds, and what's the resonant response to each moment as it unfolds. And then Bethany, I want to build on something that Bethany shared in a moment, but Eloise, just come back to you briefly on what's been shared so far. How's this all kind of integrating in you?
Yeah, it's really good to just hit other people's views and experiences, and sort of, the validation really, of the getting out the way, of the, as someone said in the chat, sort of like the more I let go, the more the client takes a space. I can feel all that. And I like the analogy of sort of like working with a child and just holding it lightly.
Great, lovely. So back to Bethany's sharing of the art and the kind of parameter or the kind of outline that creates some containment within which more creativity actually becomes available. This is a really beautiful idea, and I want to kind of offer a perspective on this. This perspective comes from complexity science, and when we're working with the body in our coaching, particularly at the Somatic School, we're very much working in a process-oriented way. Complexity science is a wonderful science that helps us understand some of what helps change happen, because human beings, the human organism with which we are working as a body coach, or all coaches are, but because we cannot be anything other than a human organism, is a complex living system. So one of the ways that coherence happens in complex living systems, one perspective on this is something called constraint theory. And so this speaks directly to what Bethany was talking about with the yin and yang of what I like to call, we're here at the Somatic School, we're beginning to do more articulation on this. Somanauts, you're going to have loads of this is coming soon. So this is a little teaser on this for you, which is the balance between openness and containment. And this dynamic tension you're talking about, if you begin to think about this actually as a dynamic relationship, that one actually supports the other, just like yin needs yang and yang needs yin. Well, so what happens is I want to name, before I get into the detail of this, that in your original question, I need to find it, Eloise, but if a client wants to meander and feel into the space, that itself can become the want for the session. Like that itself can be the desired, perhaps the desire for the session. And then you might ask them, well, for what, what is it about that resonate, that feels alive in you today? Or what is it about that has, what about today or this moment or this session is making this something that has this be something that you want to do and want to explore? That's going to give you even more of a sense of maybe where that leads them to, potentially even a desired outcome. So it might not be conventionally thinking about coming into a session. It's like, oh yeah, I have this topic. They just want to meander and feel into space, but but at some level, it's for a purpose. And to know what that purpose is at some level will give you your North Star, essentially. So I just
transpired that the purpose, which transpired right at the end, was like she spent so much of her time knowing exactly how she's going to be in life, very planned and scheduled, that then to have the space to meander without a schedule, just free flow, just to see where it unfolds, was really liberating for her.
Amazing, liberating. And that's a whole hour, if your session's an hour long, of essentially new neuroplasticity work there. Because for somebody who's very, very planful, very controlling, very kind of dictates the movements of their day, to the nth degree, to be in a meandering space is to carve new neural pathways and create new connections, that so essentially you're practicing other ways of being that client obviously clearly wants to cultivate in themselves, or it seems they do. No, I shouldn't say clearly. It seems from what you said that they do. Okay, so back to the notion of constraints then. So Alicia Guerrero is somebody who's quite interesting scientist, an interesting person to look up about that. She wrote a book called Context Changes Everything. And so, she uses language of, she gives us the term, the notion, which is a great reframe on constraints. It's like enabling constraints. So the desired outcome for a session would be an enabling constraint. And what enabling constraints do is they actually do exactly what Bethany was describing about the outline that allows for more creativity inside of it. Not only that, it actually sets the scene for self-organization to happen in a particular direction. When there's just openness, that's fine. Only openness is fine. You might say that's what we want to explore. It can feel more chaotic. It can feel very incoherent because actually there's not a lot of coherence in pure openness. But when openness is paired with some containment, some constraint, then essentially what you have is like a river. You have the banks of the river, and then the water is channeled to flow through. And that flowing through is like what you described, Bethany, as the creativity that's sort of amplified within those conditions. So this is something might be worth thinking about, and maybe even offering to clients as a reframe on what we're actually up to here. So some clients might say, I really don't really want a topic, or I don't even want to think about what I want from the session. I just want to see what happens. Okay, cool. But then absolutely anything could happen. And if that's exactly what's right, then it really becomes difficult to say, have we done what we set out to do? I think at that point, you need to contract with the client and say, if this is what we're doing, then at the end of the session, whatever happened, and that's it, really. Because in pure openness, that's what you're going to get, happenings. Whereas if you have openness with constraint paired with containment, then we have a direction. We have like the water, the flow of the river is now channeled in a particular direction. And with that directionality, we make progress towards something, but in an emergent way. So even if you say, I want to have the experience of an meandering, flowing conversation because I'm so planful or I'm so regimented in my approach, well, that's a really amazing direction of travel in a sense. And then within that, we can be in a really purely emergent process. So, and we can go in any which way, but we have, I'll leave it there. You get what I mean? It can still be non-linear process, but it has an outline, to use Bethany's language there. It has a North Star. So yeah, coming back to you there, Eloise, that's quite there's a lot there.
Yes,
but, yeah.
I think so. The first word that comes to mind is the unfolding and the trust in the unfolding. Yeah, and yeah, I like that explanation of enabling constraints and sort of like the flow.
Yeah, lovely.
Maybe the river will flow that way or that way, but yeah.
Yeah, great. And I just want to pick up something Lottie said, because I think it's a nice build on what you're sharing here, which is that in the meandering, you might ask something or do some sort of intervention, and then and that could be interesting for unfolding, but is it too structured? So I think comes back to what Elidith, excuse me, said earlier, which is to work with this moment to moment. So if it is too structured, you'll notice that the session will start to feel a bit bound up, rigid or fixed or stuck, kind of thing. The flow becomes over constrained. So then, and if it's too open, it might feel really like it's like a flooding, water just kind of spilling out all over the place, kind of thing. And then maybe that's what you're wanting. And if that's what you're wanting, that's fine. But we have to choose that consciously. If it's not what we're wanting, it could feel like, where are we? I'm lost. So then it's just a question of, is it feeling a bit like that? Is it feeling a bit bound up? Is it feeling like the balance is just right? It's kind of Goldilocks method of basically being like attuning to it. Do we need more structuring now? Do we need more openness now? And then kind of attuning moment to moment. So we're kind of, it's a dance, finding the balance continuously throughout the session. Exactly, like partner dancing. Exactly, Lottie. Okay. I'm mindful of our time. I wonder, has anyone got any questions that have come up through the conversation today that's like a very quick win, or
I have a question. Sorry, I can't put it in the chat. I find that I do a good job of establishing the want with the client, and then I move on. And I know that I should spend more time wallowing in that moment. What would be important about this? Why do you want this? Do you have any advice on how to slow down or remember in the moment to do that part?
Some of what we've spoken about today might help you in particular, Bethany, because when you think about the artwork and what you described earlier, and this kind of interesting paradoxical experience of more creativity with some of that constraint, to use that word again, then actually, if you reframe that in your own mind as coach, it might help you to linger there, because it changes what you're doing. What are we doing? We're actually we're actually kind of like building up the banks of the river so that the water flows through, fast and freely, and so maybe that's part of it. Kind of upstream from any behavioral stuff is just like the belief that you hold around it. And then on the other hand, I guess, becoming more familiar with the kinds of questions you can ask there. And of course, like the questions that we offer are aligned with the ICF core competencies as well, which is good, because then if you were to be listened to, if somebody were to hear the recording of that session, then you'd be ticking lots of boxes for your credentialing. It's not a box ticking exercise, but you would be, demonstrating those competencies. So the more variety of questions that you're really familiar with and you're very comfortable with asking, the more likely you are to kind of flesh it out. I think the way, if you imagine it as building the banks, then if you ask one question, it's almost like you have two little muddy mounds either side of this flow of water. And if you keep asking questions, it's like you're building it up, or maybe grooving the channels down, for example. And maybe having a look at it from that perspective creatively might help you think, okay, have we sufficiently developed like banks? There's a Chinese proverb that says the banks of the Yangtze gives the river flow, direction, and drive. That's exactly what we're doing here with the want at the beginning of the session. So does that help at all, Bethany, for you?
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Great. Thank you for the quick win question there. I know I'm mindful that we had a few that we didn't get to. And just like we came back to Harriet's question today at the top of this session, we can do exactly that for next time. So Jamie, for example, I know that you had a question, and Elideth, you had a really interesting question. I'd love, actually, if you're back for the next coach clinic, it would be great to dive into that. Perhaps we'll start with that one next time, because it's a really rich one. I'm sure other people can relate. So I'll make a little note for that. In the meantime, I want to just check in. We're kind of coming to the end here. And if you are, again, I know that almost half of you here are new to the Somatic School. If you've enjoyed today's event, if you're curious to learn the language of these other people here who are talking about body-oriented coaching with kind of ease and comfort, and you'd like to develop confidence in that kind of articulation and understanding, then you might be interested in training as a body-oriented coach. There's a link here to join one of our free introduction to body-oriented coaching events, and they're every week, and it's a really easy free event, a really easy way to come and learn more, get your questions answered. So you may like to come along to that. For those, just by a show of hands, for those of you who were new to the Somatic School, anyone here already who's not a Somatic but already been to an intro event? Show of hands. Maybe you've all been to intro. So one of the things you can do then is Ollie, cool. Okay, so if you've already been to an introductory one of our intro events, then you might like to book a call with one of our course consultants. Are Caro or Elena here today? I don't think so. So I'll drop a link in here, and it's worth mentioning. And I have to say, I'm sorry for the Somanauts that are here. There is a little enrollment offer actually happening for the May intake. Everyone here who's already on the course, you will get access to the you'll be able to come along to this masterclass. But for those people who are joining the May intake, which happens later this month, we are actually also including this this masterclass to helping you build your coaching business, which is the kind of yang to the yin of body-oriented coaching skill set. The yang is the kind of business skills. And for Somanauts too, if you're curious to hear about this, Lucy Cavanley is going to be doing a masterclass all about this, what she calls the core framework, CORE, for helping you build your coaching practice up. And so it's sort of like when you're taking those initial first steps, or how you actually get started, but really it's the core of it. So whether you're new to it, or you already have a kind of existing coaching practice, without having the core in place, other things are sort of ancillary, but that core is really the driver for your coaching business. And that's what she's going to be teaching about. So come along to the masterclass if you'd like to. Just maybe in this final few minutes, we've got a lot of Somanauts here today, and there's some people who aren't Somanauts. I wonder if just impromptu here, Somanauts, for those who are here, who are now making a decision about whether or not they'd like to join the training on the diploma, accredited diploma in body coaching, what would you like them to know? If there was anything you'd like to share with people who are considering this, anything at all, feel free to be completely uncensored and unbiased. What would you, as much as possible, what would you share with them? What would you like them to know about the learning experience?
I would love to share that. I think it's worth doing even if you never became a coach, because it's so personally transforming. And the bonus is you become qualified to do coaching.
Beautiful. Yeah, lovely, Lottie. So it's a lovely share. Thank you. Anyone else? Just, I know we've come to time, so I was just checking. I'm just curious. Is there anyone else who wants to share anything while we're here?
I can share that it's I'm a person that have gone through several methodologies, and I really like to pick and choose things from here and there and like make a mix. And I think somatic work and the body embodied work really consolidates everything beautifully. I think it's life-changing, it's less heady, more into what is here, what is now. And it's really simple. It doesn't take you to like learn of this method, all these things. It's just like listen to what the body's saying. Like there's so much intelligence. And I think it was the last thread I needed to weave my path. So I'm really grateful about the experience.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Lottie and Elidith. I know that was spontaneous and a bit random, but it's really nice. I might invite these shares like that in the future, because that was really lovely to. It's actually great feedback too, as well. So I appreciate hearing from you two, and for everyone who attended this event today, thank you so much for joining us. We have this little closing round ritual. I know we've just gone over here, but like, if you'd like to share in the chat, I'm leaving here with just to kind of round off your experience today. Then please feel encouraged to do so, and otherwise, look forward to see you at the next event. Ciao for now, everyone. Thank you again for coming. Have a great rest of your day.